In this video, we will log in using access and refresh tokens. As you can see, the response returns an access token, and also we will get a refresh token in the cookies. We will use the access token to get the authenticated user, and we will add it in the headers like this. I will copy this access token, I will add it to the bearer headers, and I will get the authenticated user. And if this expires, so this will expire in 30 seconds, we will post to the refresh endpoint to generate a new access token, which if we use it, it will work the same. Before we start building the app, I would like to remind you that this video can be combined with other videos. So if you want to use Django with any of these front-end frameworks, I provided some links in the description of this video. So after you finish this video, make sure to pick one of these front-ends. Now let's build the app. We will start with a pre-built Django app that contains the main files in the app directory, and also another app core which will contain our models and serializers. In our app directory, in the settings file, we need to add to the installed apps the REST framework, course headers, and core, which is this app. Course headers is really important because we will use multiple frontends to consume these Django APIs, and we need to install this package, otherwise we will have course problems. To install this package, run pip install Django course headers, and when we install this package, we need to add also this course middleware here, and in the end we need to add course origin allow all and course allow credentials to true. This is required because our frontends will have a different port than our backends, and we will have course problem unless we add this line. And the second line is needed because we will send cookies to the frontend, and if we don't add this, we won't be able to send cookies to the frontend. And that's it for this package. Next is the database connection, which I will connect to MySQL. Currently this is an empty database here. This is a way to connect with MySQL, but you may connect with a different database. It is the same. And what is left, we need also this auth user model here, which is our core user. So if we go to the models, we will see that we have a user model here that contains a name, an email, and a password. The email should be unique, and I set these values to none because these are added automatically by Django, and I don't want to add them in the database. Also, this change here is when we log into Django admin, we will use the email and not the username like this, and that should be it. So with this we can run Python manage.py, make migrations. So we created a migration here, the initial migration, and now just migrate. So I'll run migrate. So this will create tables in our database. If we see here, we will create 10 tables, and this is our core user table with the name, email, and password which we need. Also, these values will be added to the serializer here. So if you don't know serializers, this may be confusing for you, so you may check my other video on Django JWT authentication. There I will explain how serializers work. So here simply I define the model, which is this user model. I define all the fields that we need to return in the response and to override them. The password won't be returned in the response because it is only write only, so only when we create the user we use this field. And when we create the user, we want to use the built-in Django function set password to hash our password, because if we don't add this function, the password will be stored as it is in the database. And we don't want that. We want to hash the password, and the way to do it is by extracting the password from the inputs, creating the user here, and then from the user we will use the built-in function and saving the user. And that should be it. Now let's create our endpoints. So in our URLs here, I added this path which starts with API, and then it will include core URLs. So it is this file here which we don't have any URLs. So let's add one. First we need to create a view, and I will create the API view here. Register API view will extend from API view. I will import this from REST framework views, import API view, and this will have a post request, so dev post, and I'll pass in the end. So this is the basic skeleton for a simple post request that does nothing. In the URLs now I will add a path, register, and this will be from views. We need to import register API view, and I will add it here, register API view as a view. So we added our first endpoint, which does nothing currently. So this endpoint will create a user. Let's do it. This request will contain all the information that we need. So we need to use the serializers now. I'll create a serializer is equal to user serializer. I will import it. So from serializers import user serializer. I'll pass there request.data. So I will pass whatever we sent in the request. Next I will check if this is valid. If it's not, we will raise an exception to true. And then in the end we will return a response, which I will import it from there is a lot of imports here. I think is REST framework response. And inside we need serializer.data. I forgot to save it, so serializer save here. And that should be it. So it is this simple. Now what is left is to test this endpoint. First we need to run the server. So run python manage.py run server. It will run our server on port 8000. And now let's test this endpoint. And to test it we need to use a tool like Postman. Go to postman.com and make sure you download that software. I will open the software now. And now we need to send a post request to http localhost port 8000/API/register. I'll select the body row JSON here, and we will send a name of a email of 8a.com and a password of a. Also make sure to change this to data is equal to request.data, because before I forgot to add this. Now let's send this request, and indeed we returned a user. So we have also the ID of 1. If we check the database, we will see that we have a record now that contains a name, email, and a password which is hashed. And also the password wasn't returned in the response. So this is what this user serializer does. Now let's use this user that we just created to login. So I'll create another class here. Login API view will extend from API view. This will be also a post request. And I'll pass for the moment. And I'll go to the URLs. I'll duplicate this. I'll import login API view here, and this will be login. And this is login API view. So what do we want to do here? We already created a user, and now we need to get that user. So we will send in the request an email and the password. First we'll get the user, which is equal. So let's import it here from user, from models, import user, and user will be equal to user objects filter, where the email is equal request that data email, like this, and we will get the first value. If the user is not set, so if not user, then we will raise an exception. So exceptions, I need here REST framework exceptions. I'll import API exception. So API exception with a message invalid credentials. So if the user is not set, if we go here, it means that we found the user with that email and we have to check the password. So if not again, user check password with the request that data password here. So this will return true if the password is correct, and false if the password is incorrect. If we add not here, it means that it will raise an exception if the password is incorrect, and I'll raise the same exception. And if we go here, it means that the response is successful. I will get the user serializer here. So serializer is equal to user serializer with the user, and I will return response of serializer that data. So let's check this login. I'll copy this URL, paste it here. This will be a post request, and we will send an email, which is aat.com, and a password, which is A. So I'll put the wrong password first, the wrong email, sorry. It seems I forgot to change this to login, and let's send it again, and we get invalid credentials. If I put the wrong password, I get again invalid credentials, and if I put the correct email and password, we get the user. So everything is correct right now. Now we want to return an access and a refresh token. So to do that, we have to create JWTs, so JSON Web Tokens, which basically are this kind of tokens that when they can be decoded will have some extra information. To use those, we have to install this package, PyJWT. So I will install it right now. Now that we install the package, I will create in the core project a Python file, authentication. And here we want to create an access and the refresh token. So I will paste it immediately, and let's import what we need. So first we need to import JWT here. We need to import also date time, and that should be it. So to create an access token, we need the ID of the user, and we will use JWT encode here, and this is the information that we want to encode. As I said before, it will create this token, and inside the payload will have the user ID that we want. This is the expiry time, so this token expires in 30 seconds, and this is the creation time, which is now. We need a secret, so I will call it access secret, and we need also an algorithm. The same will be for the refresh token, so I will name this to refresh. I will store the same user ID, and the expiry time will be days 7. So this will expire in 7 days, and this is refresh secret. When we create an access and a refresh token, the access token should be short-lived, so I put it 30 seconds here, and the refresh token should stay longer. So we created these functions, and now in the views, I will remove this serializer now. We don't need it. We need to create an access token, which is equal to create access token with the user.id inside. So if I import this, I will get from authentication import create access token. The same will be for the refresh token. I will import it here also, create refresh token. And we will have these two tokens. Now returning them will be different. So the access token will be returned in the response, like the serializer here, and the refresh token will be returned as a cookie. How do we do that? So first I will get a response here, which is equal to response, and I will set response that set cookie. I will call it refresh token, and the value will be the value refresh token. And we need also to be HTTP only to true. So HTTP only means that the backend can only get this cookie. The frontend will get this cookie, but it won't be able to access it. So the only purpose of this cookie is to be sent in the backend. So I forgot here the key is refresh token, and the value is this value. And now we want to set the access token. So the access token will be set in the response.data is equal to token the access token, and that's it. So we will return a response in the end. So let's test this endpoint now. So before it returned the user, now if we send a request, we will get the access token in the body, and we will get also a cookie here, which is the refresh token, which is also HTTP only. So that's it. The frontend will get both of these values, and now we want to get the authenticated user. So for that, I'll create a class user API view. Will extend from API view, and this is a get request. Request here. Let's pass for the moment, and let's add it to the URLs. So this is user API view. So let's import it here. User API view. User API view. So I added this endpoint, and now what do we want to return here? So first we will get the access token from the headers, and the way to do that is like this. So I will import this get authorization header from REST framework authentication. So we will get the header authorization. We will split it, so the first parameter will be the bearer and the second will be the actual token. And here we will make the condition if we have a value and the length of that value is 2, which means that we have a bearer and a token. The token will be the second value, and we have to decode it to UTF-8. So this will be the access token. Now that we got the access token, we need to decode it, and for that I'll go again to the authentication.py file, and here I will add the function to decode it. I will paste it directly, and I will import here the Django exceptions. Where is it? REST framework exceptions. And in this decode function, we simply pass the token. Also, the second parameter is the secret and also the algorithm. In the end, I want to return just the user ID. I don't need the other information. If this fails for some reason, we return unauthenticated. So that should be it. So while I am at it, I will add also the decode refresh token, and this will accept the refresh secret. So it is the same. Now I'll go back to the views, and I will get the ID of the user, which is equal to decode. I will get it here. Decode access token and also decode the refresh token. The ID will be equal to decode access token, and I'll pass the token. So if this is successful, then we can get the user. So the user is equal to user objects filter, where the primary key is equal to this ID, and we will get the first value. And that is the authenticated user. So I will return it as a response, as a user serializer here. So I will remove these hints. I'll pass here the user, and I want the data. So I did this in one line. The long way is like this, but I did it in one line. If we have some kind of error in the end here, I will raise an exception. So I will copy this line. I'll go back, and I will raise authentication failed exception. And that should be it. So this is how we get the authenticated user. So what is the problem here? I get the API exception, and I need here, so my bad, authentication failed. Let's test this endpoint now. I'll copy the URL here, paste it here, and this is user. Also, when we switch tabs on Postman, if we have a cookie here, the cookie will be preserved also in this endpoint. So we get the cookie. We get unauthenticated because we needed to add the header, the authorization header, as a bearer. The second value will be this token. I will paste it here, send a request, and I still get unauthenticated. Why is that the reason? Because the token will last only for 30 seconds, and this has probably expired. So I will log in again, get a new token, and I'll paste it here immediately. And now I get the authenticated user. So it is working fine. But this user will last only for 30 seconds because we need to refresh that access token if it expires. So let's add now another endpoint to refresh that access token. So I'll call it refresh API view here, and this will be a post request. I'll pass it for the moment. Let's add it to the URLs. Refresh. Let's get it here. So this is refresh API view. Refresh API view. So what do we want to do here? So I have an error. So in this refresh API view, we want to get the refresh token. We have to validate that token, and then we need to generate a new access token. So this will be really simple. So we have to get the refresh token is equal to request cookies like this, get refresh token. So we will get the refresh token from the cookies, and now we have to decode it. So this will return the ID. So decode refresh token, and I will pass this refresh token. If something fails here, we will return also unauthenticated. If it doesn't fail, we will get the ID of the user, which we will get a new access token, which is equal to encode or create access token with the ID. and in the end we will return that token, return response with the token, access token, like this. So it is this simple. We just get the refresh token from the cookies, we decode it, we generate a new access token, and that should be it. So let's test it now. This user probably has expired right now and we returned unauthenticated, but we have the refresh token cookie. So I will open a new tab now, and this is refresh, and this will be a post request. We don't want to send anything in the body, just send this request and we will get a new token, which I will copy and I'll paste it here, and it works. So that's it. So now this looks really annoying if we refresh all the time, get a new token, and then we have to paste it here. But this will be done very easily on the front end, so this is not the job of the backend to replace the tokens. We added the refresh API view, and what is left now is to add the last function, which is logout API view. As an API view, this will be a post request, and this I will pass it for the moment. Let's add it to the URLs. Let's add here logout API view, and this will be logout, and this is logout API view. And this function will be very simple. We will simply remove the refresh token. To remove the cookie, we have to get the response is equal to response delete cookie with the key refresh token, and response we need a body, so the data of the body will be message success, and we return the response, and that's it. It is this simple. We probably don't need the request, so I'll put an underscore here. This means that it won't be used, and let's test it now. I'll copy this, paste it here, and this is logout. This is a post request. Let's send the request, and we get success, and we removed the cookie. This means now that when we get the authenticated user, we get unauthenticated. But even if we refresh the endpoint, we still get unauthenticated. So that's it. We completed what we need in order to use access and refresh tokens. So I have only one small last problem, which this is only on my case. On your case, you will probably be okay with this information. The status that I return or Django returns is 403 forbidden and 403 forbidden. I combine multiple frontends with backends, and all the backends should return 401. Only in Django I have this kind of problem, and the way that I want to fix this problem is like this. I will create another Python file here. I'll call it exceptions, and I'll paste this function. So I'll also import here from REST framework views import exception handler. And what does this function do? So we will get a response, and we will check here that if the response is known and it has a status code of 403, which is now in our case is this, I want to change the response code to 401. So this is just a simple bug fix that I want to all the front ends and the backends, I want to synchronize them. In your application, you don't have to do this. So I just did it for the sake of the combinations. And now I added this function. I will go to settings and I will paste it here. This. I will add the REST exception handler for the REST framework, which is located in core exceptions status code handler. And this, I will save it now. I will get the same response, and this time is unauthorized 401. So all the frontends now will be based on this 401 error. And that's it. We completed the authentication with access and refresh tokens in the backend, in the Django part. Now, to complete this app, you need to build one frontend. Also, if you want a more complex project, I provided in the links of the description of this video the ultimate authentication course with Django and React, but you can pick any frontend that you want. In this course, you will learn more complex stuff like login with two-factor authentication with your Google Authenticator and social authentication using your Google account. So you can get this course here on Scalable Scripts on Udemy, or you can get all my Django courses for just $8 a month if you are not in Europe, and if you are in Europe for 9.52 per month. So it's up to you. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Thank you.